Hello and welcome to our live. This is the first of a series of sessions that we're going to be holding. I'm actually really excited to announce that we've actually been in the process of preparing some really cool content for you guys. We've got a new staff member on board recently, and she's really helped us create a schedule of content that we're going to be delivering over the next 3 weeks. There's an initiative that we're going to be running specifically because we've got the month of Ramadan now as well, so a lot of people are fasting. And today's session we're going to be covering something a little bit about that, about how you can utilize this time to benefit kind of in more ways than you may think. Okay, so I really want you guys to look out for the coming sessions, the upcoming sessions. We're going to try and run one of these sessions at least once a week, and we're going to be covering a range of different topics. We've got some workouts that we're going to have for you as well. So this is something very different. We've got a new team, new team member who is a real high-level athlete in what he does, and I can't wait to introduce you guys to him in the live sessions. So he's going to be doing some weekly workouts with you guys as well, if you want to get involved in maximizing the benefit you can have with your health and your fitness. So we've got that coming up, and we've also got some really cool content going out in our newsletter. So we've been preparing some content for you guys to really kind of help. I think I want to take you guys on a journey of education, and I think there's certain elements and certain levels of understanding that we as human beings that possess physical bodies, which is every single one of you who's alive, need to possess. You need to have certain understandings. And I think the content that we're going to put out is what I would class as the essentials, right? And this is a perspective and understanding which you guys are all going to benefit from. So if you want to be part of this, then make sure you check and keep an eye on your email inbox. If you're not already signed up to our newsletter, then check it out right now. Just click the link in our bio and you can sign up to our newsletter. Even if you click off this page and go and sign up to our newsletter, I would recommend that you do that so that you don't miss the updates on what we've got coming up. Really got some jam-packed high value content for you. In those emails, we're going to give you an article which is going to be some thought-provoking content for you to think about, hopefully some tips for you to implement and benefit from, and it'll also give you the days and the times of our upcoming live events, the topics that we're going to be discussing, and the various times in which they're going to be listed. So without further ado, we're going to start on today's topic, and the topic of the day is more to do with the current time. Okay, so it's currently a time where people are partaking in fasting. Okay, people partake in fasting for a number of different reasons. But as you probably know, fasting is something that is linked with many spiritual practices, and particularly the month of Ramadan is something in which Muslims fast. And I myself today am fasting, and I've been fasting the last week pretty much because we're just in the first week of Ramadan. So what I wanted to touch upon today is, how are you utilizing this month? I want to ask you that question, and we can make this as interactive as you guys want. So feel free to jump in the comments and we'll get this kind of going. So we're going to be running for a short while, looking at about half an hour that we're going to be going through this content. So this is the first time I'm kind of presenting to you guys directly. So normally we have trainings and we have sessions where we teach and we have students that come along for education. You guys got the chance now of joining me in this live session to get involved in this and take part in this. So how are you using this month, right? So we know that the month of Ramadan is a month where we fast, we abstain from food. And it's a month where, even from a religious and a spiritual perspective, there's many concepts that we know in which kind of this is the month where you're training for the rest of the year, right? Spiritually, now I'm talking. When we're looking at, fasting, we are taking something which is a very natural and normal desire and need, which is the need to nourish our bodies, the need to eat, and we're conditioning ourselves, and we are putting ourselves into a state in which we are disciplining ourselves effectively, and this whole month of discipline is something which and the narrations say and the traditions say that the person who really benefits from the month of Ramadan is the person who carries on the good habits that they've created in this month, and they carry that on forward in the following months. And this is a sign of acceptance. However, what I want to say is that there's a lot that we can learn from the month of Ramadan in terms of our physic and in terms of our spiritual conditioning, in terms of, improving our character, improving our behaviors, making ourselves, kind of punctual with good habits, in the religious sense and the spiritual sense. However, quite often I think a lot of people really miss out on the potential that you can gain from the month of Ramadan in your physical health. Now you may say, oh, well, my physical health, the month of Ramadan is something which is about spirituality and so forth. And I get you 100%. The month of Ramadan is a unique time in which you can gain, so much benefit to yourself spiritually. However, my question here is why would, God decide on making our spiritual journey connected to something so physical, such as food, right? How and why would God do that? Why would he create such a connection with our physical bodies? So not eating and eating itself as well, they're both very physical things, right? So abstaining from food is a physical thing. You feel physical hunger, your body physically feels tired, you have lots of different effects, and obviously there's lots of physiological benefits which we can touch upon as we go through this session. But what I want to highlight is that the month of Ramadan is a physical cleanse just as much it is a spiritual one, right? And if you're not someone who's seeing it as that, and you're someone who just looks past the physical and just says, oh, well, it's just a spiritual thing, then I think you're really, really missing out. I think the month of Ramadan is a month in which you change your habits, you start introducing new ones, you introduce levels of discipline, and you are, you're utilizing and you're capitalize on some of the traits which are excellent traits for change and transformation. If you don't recognize it in that way, then I think you're really missing the bus, right? So there's many things which I would say, that your physical health is a spiritual thing, right? Being physically healthy is a spiritual matter. And how do I come to that conclusion? Well, if we look at it from the Muslim traditions or the Islamic tradition, then we would say, okay, the Islamic traditions, we know we have the 5 pillars of Islam, okay? So we have the Shahada, okay, your testimony of faith. After the Shahada, we have, and I think the Shahada is the only one which is only dependent on your your mental capacity. It's not so reliant on your physical capacity. The next one, okay, your salah, okay, your prayers, right? Now again, if you know anything about the Islamic religion and the Muslim traditions, you'll know that we as Muslims, we pray physically, okay? So you might see, someone bending, making ruku, forming all of these different positions, which you'll know, even if you know anything about yoga, you'll know that these are very physical positions which are used in other practices, such as physical practices of yoga. So if you want to fulfill the next pillar, then, you do physical activities, and, obviously you can pray even if you can't move, you can still pray. However, what I would say is that if you are, if you are fulfilling your prayer to the fullest degree, then it's a physical thing, right? If you're sick, if you're ill, if you're injured, then you can't fully complete the second pillar of Islam. Then you have the next one, which is Ramadan, okay? And again, if you're sick, if you're taking medication, if you're, unwell, then again, you can't partake in the month of Ramadan. So this is something which, you miss out on the fasting. Obviously, you partake in the month, but you miss out on the fasting. The next thing is, zakat, giving charity, right? If you are sick and if you're ill, undoubtedly it has a relationship with your capacity to contribute and create value. And value is a form, money is a form of value. And if you don't have the ability to create value and create money, then unfortunately it's quite possible that you may need to be the person who's being helped, right? You may need help from other people. You may be the person who needs to receive charity. So maybe, just maybe, you won't be someone who's necessarily able to contribute and even fulfill the pillar of giving zakat, because you're the one in need. And they say the best way to not, the hand which gives is better than the hand that takes. So, from a religious and spiritual perspective, I want to highlight physical health, okay? And the last one is the pilgrimage, Hajj, right? If you've ever performed Hajj, then you'll know, or if you've seen people performing Hajj. I'm blessed and fortunate enough to have completed this pillar. it's a very physical act, right? It requires a lot of physical activity. You do a lot of walking, it's exerting, and you need to do tawaf, and you need to do all of these various rituals which involve physical activity. So what I'm getting here is that physicality and spirituality are deeply connected, okay? They are not separate things. So when you look at this month of Ramadan, I want you to see this month as something which is connected both physically and mentally, okay, and spiritually. This is something which is, connected. They're connected to each other. So these are some of the things I want to start off with. This is the introduction really to what I'm talking about, is that your physical health and your spiritual health are very much connected. If you're not in a physically kind of, optimized state, and we'll talk about this, how do you get to a physically optimized state? You need a certain level of spiritual capacity to even get yourself in a physically optimized state. Okay, so now when we go into food, right, and we're going to fasting. So this month, people are fasting for up to 30 days where they're going completely, without any food or nourishment in daylight hours. They are overtaking a physical desire to eat. They are kind of closing down a natural response that your body has in order to consume, in not to consume food. Now I want to ask you, where is this desire come from? Where does the need to eat come from? Obviously, it's your body, and you are trying to fulfill a basic principle of nourishing your body. Now, before we go into that, why do you want to nourish your body? Like, why do we eat in the first place, right? As if you follow the Muslim faith, then you'll know and you'll understand that everything in your life can be an act of worship if you do it with the right intention, right? So what we say is that one of our purposes on earth is to come closer to God and to please God, right? And if that is the case, then everything we do, from eating, sleeping, brushing our teeth, working, whatever it is, when you're providing for your family, if you do it with the right intention, in the sense that, this is something that God would be pleased with, and this is, I'm fulfilling this in order to benefit and fulfill my purpose in life even further. So I'm eating in order to replenish my physical self so that I can please you even further. I can, work in a way that is, fulfilling my purpose in life, spiritually, physically, all of these things. So fasting, food has a purpose, and just in the same way, fasting also has a purpose. Now, I know Islamically and spiritually we have this concept that, you fast so that you can become closer to God, and that you can become more conscious of God, like in a spiritual way. So when we're looking at this now, and I want to take this back, right? I'm gonna come off the kind of religious tip now. I'm gonna bring this back to a physiological level. We're gonna look at this from a perspective of your physiology, what's happening with your nervous system, and what are you doing, right, when you withstand from eating, when you abstain from eating. Now, first of all, we know that there's certain elements of our inner self which are animalistic. Okay, so there's certain qualities which you have within yourself which are primitive, right? Which you share with animals, right? So what would they be? Okay, so let's get this a little bit interactive. Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome. We've had a few comments. I've not gone through them all. Thank you for your comments. But yeah, why what would you say? What was the answer to that question? What are the primitive things that you have? So if you want to get interactive, let's see your answers. What are the primitive responses that you have within your body? Let's look at this from a physiological perspective. So I'm not just talking to people who follow the Muslim religion, just people who are fasting. I'm talking to everyone now. What are the primitive physiological kind of instincts and responses you have as a human being, which you share with an animal? Okay. Any uptakes with that? Okay, we've got lots of people waving, saying hello, but any uptakes with that? Okay, so I'll give you one. One of them is obviously what we've discussed, hunger. Okay, hunger is a physiological response, right? Your body wants food, and your body needs food, it needs nourishment. So it has an animalistic response to consume food. Okay, we have a certain degree of pleasure that we have when we eat. Okay, so yeah, excellent. Okay, so we've got Banjaku, who's commented, urges, fear, famine, 100%. Okay, so that's on the button. That's exactly what I was looking for. Is, yeah, we have the human and the animalistic instinct of hunger, okay, of eating. We have the animalistic instinct of fear. Fear is an animal response, okay? And when you're dealing with a situation and you get stress in your life and you get all of these different things, if you respond with fear, then you're allowing the animal self to take over, okay? There's other things which we have within ourselves which are almost kind of animalistic in their response. Now, if you go to a pack of animals and you introduce a new one, right? And let's say you have 2 alpha males, for example. What do you get? You get this kind of, there's almost like a pecking order, right? There's this thing where, you see someone else who's in a position that you want to be in. And what do you do when you see someone else who's in a position you want to be in? What do animals do? They'll fight, right? They'll fight. So, you're not being the head of the pack. I want to be the head of the pack. Okay, so in the same way as human beings, we have an inner instinct of our self and our greed, right? We want things. We have an instinct of sexual desire, right? We want to fulfill and gratify ourselves. We have an instinct of even kind of envy, right? When you envy someone and you have this animalistic, you see someone who has what you like or what you want, and you think to yourself, I'm more deserving of that than them, right? So there's all these qualities, jealousy, right? They're not just linked to our hunger and what we feel in our stomach. So ultimately what I'm saying is that these animalistic responses that we have within ourselves, these are things which are part of our lower self. Okay, so if we're going to consider levels of our spirit, of our human kind of reality, there's different levels of human reality, right? You get people who are low-level humans who their hunger is the main thing that drives them. Their greed is the main thing that drives them. Their sexual desires are the main thing that drives them. They are, there's all these, animalistic responses and animalistic primitive qualities which drive all of their behaviors. However, we get higher levels of operation. So, and we can take this all the way back down to when we're children, right? When you're a child, if you're someone who, and I've got, young children, and if my daughter's hungry, next thing you know, she's throwing things on the floor, she's chucking herself on the floor, she's doing things specifically to kind of get attention, and she's showing that she's angry and she's upset and she's kind of in a mood, right? Why? Because the hunger is taking over now, okay? And she's not able to process that animalistic response of not having a need fulfilled. She's not able to process the ability to withstand and separate herself from her lower self, right? So when we're looking at this now in the context of what I've just described, as we're growing older, what happens is, we have a certain level of maturity that is associated with our ability to disattach from our animalistic and our primitive responses. If you're in school and someone calls you a name and they cuss your mother, right, and you've got an urge, you've got a response, the anger comes out and your emotion comes out, and the next thing you're in a fist fight in school, right? Now, if you compare that to someone who's able to say, you know what, I know I can do that. I know I can fight. I know I can hit. I know I can hurt someone, and I know I can put someone in their place. Yet I withstand from that, and I elevate myself because my higher self, my consciousness, my spiritual self is present, and it's overriding, and it's telling the animal, no, calm down, and you're taming your animal. So this is the difference between a wild horse and a horse that has been tamed, and the horse has been ridden and kind of conditioned, okay? So what I'm getting at here is that when you are doing things in which you are controlling your lower self, you're elevating yourself on a spiritual level, right? You're putting yourself closer to, and there's a narration, and there's a saying that says, that human beings, they have the ability to be worse than animals, right? Meaning that they just follow their desire. Like an animal just has no choice but to follow its animalistic instinct. Whereas a human has those animalistic instincts and has the choice whether to express them or not, and sometimes lets go with no inhibitions. You have no ability to prevent your animal self from taking over and moving forward with you and being in control of you. Now, these are the types of people who exist in our society, they exist in our world, and they would be considered the lower level people who, who are almost like a drug addict, right? Is that they need their hit, right? They will steal, they will cheat, they will rob their own mother to get that drug in their system, right? In the same way, we can be, in a state where our state is so low that we lower ourselves to the point where the animal takes over and it dictates our behaviors. And we also have the ability to do the opposite of that, and the opposite of that is, human beings, as I was mentioning, the quotation, can be worse than animals, or they can be better than angels. And an angel doesn't have an animalistic response. It doesn't have, this beast within it that it needs to tame. It just follows the instructions and does what it should be doing. And it's programmed to be, right and righteous in all of its actions. Whereas a human being, even though it has a need and a desire and an urge to do things which are not correct, and it has the choice to do those things, it chooses its higher self and its spiritual self, and it elevates itself higher. So this is where now when we look at the concept of fasting and we say, okay, well, fasting is more than just abstaining from food. Fasting is elevating yourself to a higher spiritual level. So you hear people, in a room, and you're talking and you're waiting to open your fast, and they start talking about someone else, and they start, talking bad about someone else. And you say, you know what? A part of me would be willing and ready to get into this conversation, but I'm going to elevate myself to a high level. I'm not going to respond. Or we have someone, and it's mentioned again in a narration where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, it's said that if someone kind of comes up to you and attacks you and, starts, fighting with you or quarreling with you during your fast, you should say to them that I'm fasting. Okay, to hint to them that I'm not going to get involved. I'm going to abstain from this, interaction where we have, where we are, arguing with each other, and I'm not going to allow myself to stoop to that level. I'm fasting and I'm controlling myself. Now, what has this got to do with physicality? What am I getting at? What am I talking about? Now, one thing is that, first of all, I want to say that, look, if you are someone who's fasting during this month, and you are fasting during the daylight hours, and you have so much capacity within you that you're able to resist water, you're able to resist food, you're able to resist, backbiting and getting involved in things which are, feeding your lower animal, then how about outside of your fast, when you finish your fast, when you stop your fast? Number one, that you're able to train yourself physically to not just go out and eat anything and everything. Why don't you take the time to maybe remind yourself of the purpose of eating, right? You reminded yourself of the purpose of fasting. You've gone through that process. You looked at, why am I fasting? I'm fasting to elevate my spiritual self. I'm fasting to gain the pleasure of Allah, pleasure of my Creator. I'm fasting, maybe even you thinking about the physiological benefits that I'm gaining, a physical benefit by doing this. But I want you to think about, just as much as fasting and the purpose of fasting, I want you to think about the purpose of eating itself. Why is it that you're eating? Right? And this is applicable to anyone, whether you fast or you don't fast. Are you eating because you're hungry and you just have an animalistic response that you want to fulfill? Are you eating because you are in a situation where you're depressed and you're upset, and you're eating as a form of comfort, and eating gives you a little bit of pleasure, so you comfort yourself in that pleasure? Now you're eating, and you're eating more, and you're eating more, because you see these habits and understanding the reason behind everything. There's this concept of the 7 whys. Ask yourself why for everything you do. And I think, as someone who's practices or tries to adhere to Islam as much as possible, this is an important thing to try and do as well, is try to go back to your purpose, go back to your intention. Again, we have a concept within Islam, one of the famous hadith or narrations, it says, Innal a'mal bin niyat, means all actions are founded and they're based upon their intention. So we should always go back and ask yourself, when it's time to eat, or when you are eating, and even if you haven't been fasting, the next thing you pick up, ask yourself, what is the purpose in me eating? Why am I eating? Now, as I said, if we practice what we preach, and we say, as someone who follows a way of life rather than just a spiritual discipline, we follow a way of life, then we should be eating with the purpose of pleasing our Creator. We should be eating with the purpose of, by eating this food, I'm going to nourish my body so that I can do good actions, that contribute to the world, and they will hold weight in my account when I'm gone in a spiritual sense. So if you're eating for that purpose, then ultimately you're eating to nourish your body, right? You're eating to nourish your body so that you can benefit from that nourishment in a way which is pleasing to your spiritual self, and it feeds your spiritual soul. So you eat physical food to feed your spiritual soul, right? Ultimately, this is what we need to think about. So what my point here is, first of all, before we go further into this, because I do want to go a little bit deeper into this concept, right? But ultimately, we need to ask ourselves, if we are stuffing our face and we decide that why am I eating this food as opposed to this food? Why am I choosing this over that? Why am I eating more and more and more? Why am I eating when I'm no longer hungry, right? Now, there's a huge benefit that you can have, as I said, on your physical self, on your spiritual self, in so many ways. But look, use this month of Ramadan to capitalize on all the benefits that you can gain from your relationship with food, your relationship with fasting. Maybe you can look at this month and you can think of it as an opportunistic way to say that, you know what, let me not overeat and indulge in so much food that I'm in an insulin coma, laying on the sofa, trying to get myself up to do any positive activities. Let not yourself be in a state where you ate so much junk late last night when you were cramming in food for your fast that the quality of the nutrition that you have in the following day leaves you lethargic and you've got no energy, and as a result you lay in bed and you become a burden upon your family, and you're not someone who's contributing and saying, look, let me help you with this, let me help you with that. And I want to take you actually to a quick story which I heard when I was actually in the masjid or the mosque at one time, and it said that there was two groups of people, and there was one group of people who were fasting, and there were another group of people who were with the Prophet, peace be upon him, and they were not fasting. And what happened is the ones who were fasting, they were being served by the ones who were not fasting. So they were looking after them. I would understand that this would be a voluntary fast as opposed to a compulsory fast. So there was two groups of people, one who were fasting and the one who weren't fasting. And the ones who weren't fasting, they were fussing around all these people that were fasting. So when you're fasting, you just relax. Let me help you. Let me prepare the food. Let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do the work for you. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said at that time, he said that the reward on this day is with those people who were not fasting. Okay, the reward on this day was with those people who were not fasting. So I want you to think about this. Okay, I want you to think about contributing. Okay, not just abstaining from food and saying, okay, this is between me and God. Contributing to your, to the wider environment that you're in, right? Doing something positive with yourself in this state. So going back, I think I've diverged a little bit, but going back to the point, what I'm saying is utilize this month to physically benefit as well as spiritually benefit. How can you do that? Simple. Don't overindulge. Think about what you're going to eat. Plan, okay? If anyone wants, if anyone knows anything about nutrition, you'll know that the key to being successful with your nutrition is preparation, meal prep, okay? Prep your meals for iftar, prep your meals for suhoor. Think about what you're going to do. Eat with intention. Don't eat with indulgence and don't eat with instinct, right? Okay, what are you eating? I'm eating a samosa. Why? Because it's in front of me. Okay, and we've all been there, right? I'm not going to lie. I've been there too, where there's something, you've been fasting all day and there's something delicious in front of you, but it's not the best thing you can be eating. And I'm not saying torture yourself. What I'm saying is try to eat and try and have some intention behind what you're eating. You can treat yourself. You can treat yourself with an intention. You can say, I'm eating this and I'm treating myself with the intention of treating myself. I've been fasting all day, so I'm going to have something nice. But make a balance, right? Benefit yourself physiologically. How can you do that? Eat things which are going to nourish you and get into the habits of eating those things and eating well, okay? So if you are someone who has, let's say you have some focused goals, you want to, maybe you say, I wish I could perform Hajj. I wish I could go Umrah. I wish I could, be physically more active. I wish I could be physically fit. And remember that from a religious perspective and from an Islamic perspective, it's mentioned that Allah loves a strong believer better than a weak believer. Okay, so we're talking about physicality. This explanation of this is that Allah loves a strong believer more than a weak believer. So if we are going with the intention, we should go with the intention of trying to benefit ourselves and be stronger in ourselves physically, and not just go for the easy path. Now, I want to touch upon something now, which I just mentioned, the easy path, okay? You know, we say in our religion, we say in Islam, you know, we have, you know, just as we have the Lord's Prayer in Christianity, of different things. In Islam, for those who are non-Muslim, in Islam we have something called the Surah Fatiha, right? Which is like, this is our staple prayer. This is a prayer that we say every single day, you know, and we repeat it multiple times. And it's probably the most important prayer that we can have within the religion of Islam. And that that prayer, one of the key components of it starts with a supplication. We ask God, and what we say is, we say, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, meaning, guide me to the straight path, guide me on the right path, God. God, please take me to the path which is righteous, which is straight, which is the right way to go. Now, I want to highlight that God never said, and we never say, oh God, guide me on the easiest path. Guide me on the path of least resistance. Guide me on the path which is the most comfortable path, which doesn't require anything from me, and it's the most simplest path. Okay. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because, you see, when you put your animal under control, right, it's not always easy, right? Your animal self, when you're hungry and your stomach is churning like mine is right now, right, then, you know, it's not easy. You feel the pangs of that, and you need to overcome that. It takes strength, right? It takes power to be able to do that. Now, just in the same way, you know, it's your body is yearning for something. Your body's telling you to do something, and, you know, you are avoiding that thing. You're stopping yourself from doing that thing. Now, one thing I want to question is that if you've followed our newsletters and you've seen some of the content, you'll see that I'm very focused on helping people understand the relationship with their body and understand where they sit in relation to their physicality and this animal which is within. And it's important to understand the reality and the presence of our animalistic self, or our nafs, right? Because without that, we have no ability to tame it. You can't deal with something which you don't believe exists. Right? So when we're talking about our animal self, if you want to look at it from a secular perspective, then you can talk about the monkey brain, you can talk about our subconscious, you can talk about our kind of primitive brain, or however you want to say it. So what I would say is that if we look at this concept, so I'm just going through some of the comments. So it says, Ramadan Kareem, thank you, Ramadan Kareem to you, my brother. And also it says, the right path is the easiest path. So is a good understanding. So, well, I would beg to differ. Okay, so when we say Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, when we say guide me on the straight path, is the right path always the easiest path? Okay, is the right path always the easiest path? Any question? Any comments on that? Do you think the right path is always the easiest path? Now, I'm going to answer this from a religious or Islamic perspective. Is that it says that, you know what? Hell is in front of hell, or before hell, you have all of these things which are attracting you, all of these things which are pleasurable and kind of nice, and you know, they're very easy to fall into. So, you know, falling into the trap of hell is easy, as they say. And they say that paradise is surrounded by all of these obstacles, and there's difficulty involved in that. Okay, now if we look at this. Welcome Nadeem, learning Unani medicine. Thank you for your comment. So if we look at this from the perspective of, you know, is the easiest path always the best path? Now let's look at this from a secular perspective. Let's break this down. Okay. Now physiologically, we know that our bodies have wisdom. We know that the animal within sometimes has some really, really fascinating abilities. Oh, sorry. I said the right path is not always the easiest path. Okay, I apologize. I misread that. I'm wearing a white top, and your comments are written in white, so I can't always see. The writing. So apologize. Okay, I stand corrected. Anyway, going back, the right path isn't always the easiest path. Okay, I agree with that. Now, if we look at this from a from the perspective of, you know, your spiritual self and your animal self, okay, is it easy for a child to give in to their tantrum and throw themselves on the floor and start crying? Is it easy to go and punch that person who really annoyed you and who's really agitating you and irritating you? It is easy. It's very easy to do that. Is it difficult to abstain from that? Is it difficult to kind of stop yourself from doing that? Yes. it is difficult. Sometimes it's a challenge. But now I want to go back to another principle, because there's two concepts here which we're talking about which don't marry up 100%. And that is, on one side, we're always saying, listen to your body. We're always saying your body knows best. We're always saying, if your body's craving something, then maybe there's some merit behind that. Maybe you have you're nutrient deficient in something. We know that when women are pregnant, they crave certain foods, right? And that it just happens that the foods that they crave are actually often things that they're deficient in. We know that the body has a great and an amazing ability to heal itself from within. We call it innate intelligence. There's so many different examples where we can look at the wisdom within the human body. So the question is, how do we know when to listen to the body, and how do we know when to deprive the body? How do we know when to condition the body? And I think the word condition is really important. So in this concept of fasting, we are now conditioning our body, or we are now saying to our body, no. You want water? The answer is no. You want food? The answer is no. I'm not going to give in to what you're saying. I'm doing this for a higher purpose, and I'm not giving in to my animalistic self. Okay, so if that's the case, now how do we explain that? How do we explain, listening to our body, doing what our body needs, doing what our body wants, and then, going against that and saying no to our body? And someone who maybe doesn't have and understand the concept of how, as Muslims, we say, okay, the person or the thing that created our body is the thing that has prescribed fasting upon us. So we have complete faith and trust in the fact that it's good for us. However, I've come across so many people in the past who say to me, oh, you're fasting. What? Not even any water, right? And I'm sure you get this a lot of times if you're fasting yourself. No, not even any water. That's right, not even any water. Surely that can't be good for you. Surely that can't be healthy, right? And, I get where they're coming from, right? If you deprive your body, surely that can't be healthy. We talk about dehydration. We talk about how bad it is. It causes migraines. You need to make sure your body's hydrated, all of these different things. So where do we sit when it comes to this element? Now, what I want you to understand is what the body wants and what the body needs isn't always the same thing, right? So when the body wants something, right, your body might want to be in a physically, sexually orientated relationship with someone, right? And is that what your body needs, right? Is that what it needs? No, it's a desire, and it's not necessarily what your body needs. It's not necessarily the right thing for you. If you are, in a situation where, you have, your body has a need for, let's say, for example, it has a desire to eat, and you see, 12, wrong words for me to use right now at this time, but Krispy Kreme donuts, right, sitting there right in front of you. Your body could crave that. You could have the craving to want to eat all of them. You could be someone who comfort eats and has a lot of stress going on in life, and you've got a lot of pain going on in your life where you want to just come away from that pain, and you want a little bit of pleasure to balance that up. So you go and you utilize food to fulfill that craving. You could be a drug addict who's addicted to drugs, just as you can be addicted to sugar, and you want to fulfill that craving, and you want to fulfill that need by taking that drug. Is that what you really need, or is that what you want? You see, the body is an interesting thing, and the animal within is a very interesting thing. It's a very efficient thing. Now, when I say efficient, right, what I'm saying here is that if your body's efficient at getting what it wants. Okay, your body has one of the main priorities that your physical body has in the innate animal is survival. Okay, it is survival. And just making sure that you stay alive, right? This is a primitive response. And sometimes your body uses various things. It uses the fear to try and survive. It uses the fight or flight response to try and survive. And sometimes this is overshot. Sometimes our fight or flight response is a little bit overdone, or our body is, responding a little bit more than it should. So there's one element there. Okay. Another element of your body's efficiency and priority is that your body wants to live a life in which it has as much pleasure as it can gain, okay, and as least pain as it can gain. So you want to, your body is moving away from pain and towards pleasure, right? So this is what your body's doing. Sorry, I apologize. As I said, I've got a white top on and I'm not able to see the comments. Okay, solace reflexology. We move away from our innate desires to feed and discipline our spiritual soul. 100%. Ramadan is the month of discipline in all aspects, holistically. Yeah, 100%. Definitely agree with that. And Salam, will this be saved? Yes, this will be saved. Okay. So where was I? Okay, so I was saying that our bodies and our animal self, just like just like any other animal, right? Or any animal that you know, right? It doesn't like pain. Okay, so if you have a dog and I don't know, if you're doing training with a dog and I don't know, you smack it on the nose. If you have a cat, you'll know that that's how you train your cat, right? Your cat's doing something which it shouldn't be doing. You go to your cat and you tap it on its nose and you say no. Okay, and over time the cat starts to learn in order to avoid that pain and discomfort, it's not going to do that action. And you also teach that animal with treats. You say, okay, you know what, you did that, okay, you did your litter in the tray, here you go, have a treat. Okay, here you go, have a treat. Here you go, have a treat. So what the animal inside you is trying to do is trying to survive with as least pain as possible and as most pleasure as possible. Okay, so these are the priorities of the body. Now when you look at the human body and you look at people who are maybe living their life in a mediocre way, right? What are they doing? They're surviving. They're surviving and they're living their life and trying to gain as much pleasure as they possibly can. Excuse me. And they're trying to avoid as much pain as they possibly can. So if they're doing both of those things, quite often they live a life in which, you know, their life is just relaxed, right? They're just sitting at home, they eat, they sleep, they go to work, they come home, they eat, they sleep, they go to work. You say to them, who wants to come on a 10K jog? Not me. Why? Because there's more pain associated with that than there is pleasure. So I'm going to stay out of that. Okay, so this mediocre guy, mediocre woman who says, you know what, and to be honest, I'm not going to lie, this is the state of so many of us, especially when we're looking at, especially if we're looking at our parents and their generation, right? Because we have people now who have come, let's say we have first generation immigrants, we have people who've come to this country. And in their mind, they're like, you know what, I'm here to work hard to make it for my children. And, you know, may God bless our parents and the hard work they do for us. But they often come to this kind of conclusion that this is their purpose. They've come here to work hard to provide for their family, provide for their children and make it, right? Now, once they've done that, right, once they've worked in that shop for X number of years, once they've got that job or once they've become a doctor and they've done what they're doing, whatever it is, thereafter, what do they want to do? They want to live a simple life and they want to have, they don't want any challenges. It's just, okay, now is the time for me to put my feet up. Okay. But let me tell you a little bit something about putting your feet up. When you put your feet up, what you're doing is you're going down the path of least resistance. Okay. You're going down the path in which there's no pain associated. You're just focusing on small pleasures of life. What happens? You sit at home, you don't do much exercise, you don't do much activity. You eat food, right? You eat mithai, you eat donuts, you eat whatever it is. Soon, guess what starts happening? You start packing on the pounds. And you see, what we talked about earlier is the path, the straight path, the right path. It may not seem like the easiest path, but in the long run, at the end, it's the easiest. Because ultimately what happens is these people who live life like this, they end up causing themselves illness and they end up with a very uncomfortable path later on in their life. So we have a choice of either take the path of most resistance to have the least resistance later on, or we take the path of least resistance now and we face much bigger resistance later on. So we face much more pain and discomfort later on. Now let's put this in the context of a athlete. Let's put this in the context of a high performance athlete. They say, like Mike Tyson says, right? He says, what I do is I take what I hate and I do it so much until it becomes something, I do it as if I love it, right? He's talking about getting up early in the morning, training, running, dieting, doing all this stuff to become a high level athlete, right? The more difficulty he puts himself through, the more he gruels his body and the more he pushes himself, the more he knows that his body is going to gain physiological benefits. So this goes back to the fast. Now, when you're fasting, you're depriving yourself of food, you're depriving yourself of water, you're torturing yourself as many people may see it. However, what's happening as a result of the harsh conditions and the harsh environment that you're putting your body into? You start having stabilization of your sugar levels. You start having normalization of your blood sugar and your lipid levels. You start having an improvement in your blood pressure. You start having the release of growth hormone. You start having a system in your body which starts repairing your gut microbiome, which starts working on your on your gut lining, which starts healing you from within, which starts a process which goes into what they call housekeeping within your system. So there's so many benefits, so many multitude of benefits which occur when you fast. However, by not fasting, by not putting yourself through this challenge, by not putting yourself through a little bit of difficulty, what happens as a result? Nothing. You don't gain any benefits. You don't have normalization of your sugar levels. Your sugar levels can be worse. You can carry on going into problems with your blood pressure. You can carry on having all of these health issues. Your weight starts increasing. And what happens is you start going, by taking the path of least resistance, you end up causing yourself more problems in the future. So I want you to take this as a general note, not just in relation to fasting. I want you to take this as a general note in terms of you as a human being. And I want you to think about this in all aspects of life, not just your physical self. I want you to think about it with yourself in work. Okay, shall I take the easiest path in work and just do as least effort and work as I can and put my feet up? Or shall I do the maximum of my ability and I'm going to really push myself to achieve what I can? Okay, now which approach is going to give you long-term success in your job role? Which approach is going to lead to, if there's a situation where, someone needs to be made redundant, are you going to be the one redundant because you've put your feet up, or are you going to be the one who's being made redundant because you've worked hard every day that you've had the opportunity to? This concept of ihsan, this concept of, having, doing anything you do in the best possible way is important. And facing difficulty and challenge, seeing challenge as a problem is a problem in itself. Okay, you need to see difficulty, you need to see challenge, you need to see hardship as something which is conditioning for you. If you look at the biggest achievers in life, you find that these are often people who have gone through hardship. These people who have gone through grueling situations in life. These are people who are one point homeless or borderline homeless. These are sometimes people who came from broken homes and the difficult, very difficult times. And what you see is they have a spiritual strength within them which has allowed them to operate at a level which is an elevated level to what the average person who hasn't gone through those situations is going through. So now when we look at all health practices, whether this be fasting, whether this be physical exercise, whether this be cold water submersion, whether this be any other practice where you're putting a challenge on your body, you're going down a path which I'm not saying torture yourself and beat yourself up because it hurts and that's good for you. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is go down a path which gives you some resistance, which your body is kind of saying, which underlyingly that physical activity is good for you. That fasting is good for you. That restricting and controlling your diet in the best ways is good for you. So this is something in which I want you to understand that there's a real benefit in not just going for the easiest path, because an animal will go for the easiest path. A human, right, who has a high level of consciousness, a high level of spirituality, a high level of of existence, will go for the path which has the greatest reward. Okay, you follow what's got the greatest reward, not what has got the easiest path. So if you have, if you're going for education and you want to go and sit this easy exams, you're going to get the easy results, which everyone has got. Everyone else has got the same as you. If you're going to go down the line of trying to go for something which is more difficult, more challenging, you're going to reap the rewards of that. So I want you to understand this principle overall. It's something which I want you to start applying in your life. I want you to say that, from now on, I'm not just going to submit to whenever my body's saying, no, that's pain. Or no, I would rather sit in comfort. Do you want to come up for a jog? No, I'd rather sit on the sofa. Do you want to come to the gym? No, I'd rather sit down. Do you want to go to jiu-jitsu today? No, I'm fasting. I'm going to sit down. Path of least resistance. I'm going to leave the remainder of this time sitting on the sofa and reducing down my exertion. So these are all of the things I want you to think about, because when you start going down this pathway, when you start challenging yourself physically, you'll realize that your mind and your subconscious and the animal within is telling you, no. All the time it's telling you, no, just relax. No, just leave it. No, do it next time. No, just leave it. Forget it. Just, I can't be bothered. It's too much pain. Oh no, I'm going to be aching afterwards. Now let me tell you something. There's a guy called what's his name? I think it's Michael Goggins. Is it Goggins? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. If you've seen his stuff, okay, so he's a guy, he was a Marine, and, you know, he was overweight and he had all of these issues and he had a very difficult upbringing and all of these different things. He went into the Marines and he absolutely smashed it, right? He achieved all of these things, which, you know, are amazing achievements in terms of his physicality. And he teaches something and he says something which I commend, and I clap my hands to him when he says this. And what he says, and Vance, the guy who you're going to be working with, if you want to join our sessions, if you want to go down the path of, you know, not least resistance, if you want to go down the path where there is some resistance and you're willing to say, you know what, I'm fasting, but I'm going to give this a go. If you want to join our workouts, right, sign up to our newsletter, join us on our YouTube channel. And again, if you're not subscribed to that, check out our link in our bio. It's actually Vance who told me this. He said that Michael Goggins said that if you are, if you're doing something and the point at where your brain says stop, right? If you're doing physical activity and you're pushing yourself and pushing yourself and pushing yourself, he said the point at where your brain says stop, no, I can't do this anymore, no, I can't take anymore, no, I want to quit, no, send me home, no, 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 then the answer to this is that point, that when your brain says that, you've only reached 20% of the capacity that your physical body has to achieve, right? Think about that. That's insane. That's amazing, right? So what I'm saying is everything that you've achieved in your life physically up until this point now, until you start changing your mindset and thinking about this, everything that you've achieved, every time that you've trained and you've said that's enough, right? Your body has the ability to go another 80% on top of the 20% which you've already achieved in your system with your body at that time. So I'm going to end with that, and I want to remind you that we're starting this as a series. Just going to have a quick look at the messages. Yes, we will definitely check the DMs. I'm interested in your therapist role. If you're interested in our therapist role, then you need to apply via the means of application. There we go. Okay, and just some of the other comments. So excellent. I'm glad to see the interaction from you guys, and I'm really, really excited to deliver the rest of the content we've got. We've got loads of topics, and to be honest, I love discussing this stuff. So, you know, please join me and help me, you know, share this with you guys. And I like having discussions. You know, when I go through these things, it's like a reminder to myself first and foremost, because even just kind of having this discussion, it just brings to the forefront, you know, these concepts and these ideas, and it makes you think, you know what, I can do more. And it gives you that motivation. It's that little bit of a push to say, you know what, we can, you know, I can really push this. So, like I said, join us for the rest of our content. Like I said, this is part of a 3-week initiative, and this is just the beginning, guys. Join our newsletter, and we're making a real change in the direction that we're going in terms of the content that we're delivering to you guys. Want to deliver as much as we can to you guys to benefit yourself first, benefit your own lives, and change your own mindset and get yourself healthy. Health is, you know, I say that health is a seed, and it requires the right environment for it to grow. And that environment is who's responsible for that environment? You are responsible for that environment. So I want to see you grow. I want to see you flourish. I want to see the fruits of your health flourish so that you can benefit from them and you can gain from them. I really appreciate you guys for joining me. I'll definitely join your course. Thank you. But actions now, if you want to do something, if you enjoyed what we've covered, then go to the link in the bio right now, sign up for our subscription, click the link, sign up for our YouTube videos. The session is going to be live on Wednesday. The time is to be confirmed via email and via our feeds. So please keep an eye on them. Join us for that. Join us and join Vance for the workout. Like I said, he's going to give you, it's not going to be too stressful, okay? We're going to take into account that you guys are fasting. But like I said, use this time. You are in a calorie deficit when you are fasting. Your sugar levels are low, and your body's emptying reserves of sugar from your muscles, from your liver, and you're putting all of that into your bloodstream. Your body's going through a cleanse, right? You can do some physical activity. Remember, the narration I mentioned, it said that those people who were physically active out of the 2 groups that were fasting, on this day, the reward was with those who were serving, because they were physically active. Don't go about your day making Ramadan an excuse for everything. Oh, I'm not working today because it's Ramadan. Oh, I'm not training today because it's Ramadan. Oh, I can't go for a walk. I can't go to the shops today because it's Ramadan. Forget that attitude. Forget that mindset. Ramadan is not, a put your feet feet up and wait for the clock to tick over and eat your food at that time. That's not what Ramadan's about. Ramadan is a physical and spiritual purification. It's a time for you to create habits. It's a time for you to set the scene for the rest of the year, right? If you can discipline yourself in this way for 30 days and you can resist eating food and drink completely, then of course, outside of this month, you can resist from eating the wrong foods. You can resist eating foods which are toxic for your system. You can resist foods which are not good for your spirit and your soul. You know, gluttony itself is something which is a spiritual illness, right? So I want you guys to take heed of what I'm saying. Leave some comments below. We'll be posting this so you guys can have access to it. I'm going to end there. It should be time for me to do a little workout. Okay, so whether you're just doing something really small or you're doing something, you know, a full-on workout, get yourself, especially just before iftar, just before it's time to open your fast. You know, this is the time when energy is low, when you're depleting and everything's going down. And trust me, I've been there. Before this, I was counting the minutes and I was thinking to myself, my energy's going down, I'm depleting, and I'm not going to have the energy to deliver this. And do you know what I did? I followed Vance's workout and I followed some of the stuff that he showed me, because we had a practice run of the session that you guys are having on Wednesday. So make sure you join for that, okay? Cam, assalamu alaikum. You're going to join us for that, bro. Okay, so we've got so yeah, I'm going to end it there anyway. Make sure you join us for that. And what my point was is I had just literally did a few push-ups, did a few jumps, and I just got my blood flowing. And when my blood got flowing, what did my body do? It used, you know, the glycogen stores within my body to put them into my bloodstream, and I was able to uplift my energy a little bit. And this is why I don't look like I'm falling asleep right now, which I was before this session and before doing that little workout. Anyway, I hope and I pray that you have a blessed month, and I pray that God accepts any efforts that you make to improve yourself and elevate your spiritual level during this month. Remember, this month is about keeping up habits, breaking habits and making habits. That's what this month is about. So make sure you make the most of it. God bless, and I'll see you in our next session.